So, welcome to the first episode of my new and original series, Informal Tango Interviews, in which I want to share in a relaxed, accessible, and unscripted way the personal tango stories of common tango people like you and me, and their tango lives. And some people may have a slightly more, unique story than others, but I think every tanguero or tangera is unique in their own way, interesting in their own way, and I would like to bring people together as friends in these difficult times and beyond. So the first, forgot something. This means that any of you can contact me to have a nice, relaxed conversation in which you decide what you want to tell or not. So the first show today does feature a relatively well-known person from the international tango scene, Theresa Faus. And in her case, we will explore both this story of her tango life as well as two very interesting topics from tango music history she knows a lot about. So welcome, Teresa, and let's dive right into the origins of your tango story.
Hello, Lucas. I'm happy to be invited as the first person. I feel honored.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yes, I think it was great to begin this series with you because I think you're very interesting and you have a lot to tell. So again, welcome to the show. So I would like to start actually. I would like to know what like the origins of your tango life, your tango journey were. So, in other words, so how did you start dancing and why, and what's your background?
Well, my background is I've been dancing all my life, and at the time when I met tango the first time, I was a dance sport dancer, ballroom, standard Latin with a fixed partner, and we were in a sports club and did some competition also. And then I saw an advertisement for the show Tango Passion in Munich. It was in 1993, and we went to the show, and I was fascinated. I was really enthusiastic about what I saw about dancing, the dance techniques, the possibilities, compared to my background, because tango has a lot more technical possibilities to interact with the legs and what to do in the embrace. And I was also fascinated of the music. It was Piazzolla style music, and the band was Sexteto Major. So this was in '93, and then um, I just kept it as an interesting thing, and I started with classes 2 years later. I saw also an advertisement in the newspaper for a free tango class, and then I took regular classes. So I started 26 years ago with classes and with another partner. And then for 2 or 3 years, I kept also dancing the ballroom thing, but it was a more now a collision technically and also from the dance feeling and the to improvise what we learned in tango and in the ballroom scene when you are dancing with competition ambitions, then improvisation is completely forbidden. Our trainer that was it has everything has to be exactly like it is in the book. So in one moment I decided to leave the ballroom and to stay with tango.
Okay,
And
so
it was I think it was 3 years later, and I had started with a fixed partner. Then I was already in the stage not to need a fixed partner, to be on my own, take classes, go to milongas.
it was kind of a revelation to you that dancing could also be something totally different than what you were used to and what most people in this part of the world are used to.
Exactly, yeah. And before I had been dancing for decades already, and in the beginning I had danced rock and roll and then ballroom, and everything was fixed and interesting, and I loved to dance. But tango had a dimension I didn't know before. This improvisation with every partner is different. No need to be all the set to dance in the same way all the time, and also the music. I found the music more and more interesting.
Okay.
And the thing not to have a fixed partner, because in the other dances I always was with a fixed partner.
And that was because of the competitive element, I suppose. Like you always had to, or not just that.
When we were in the dance school before being in this sport club, it was only partners stayed together. You went as a couple to the classes, and also in the dance evenings. There was very little change of partners.
Okay. That's a totally different dance culture than our own.
Completely. And this is, but I think it's still the standard in Europe, in the world outside tango and maybe outside salsa, in this traditional ballroom dancing.
Yes. Well, it's a very interesting perspective in a sense that you were already, like some people came to tango without a clue about dancing, like I did. And some others have a lot of history in it.
It helped me a lot because we had a really intensive training of dance, of movement and stepping, and I knew several ways of walking forward and backwards, and I could use all of them in tango, or not all of them, but some of them. And what I've dance technically interesting was for me these possibilities of saccadas, ganchos, all these things where the legs interact, because in the ballroom dancing you have always parallel, or legs don't touch, and it's always something parallel or mirrored what the partner is doing. And in tango you have everything. You have parallel movements, you have mirrored movements, and you have movements where the legs interact. This was, for me, it was a great discovery to have all these possibilities.
It also sounds a bit like the style people were maybe more interested in back then, like maybe a bit more show tango like. Like I'm not sure, but was it different than what you would dance socially nowadays?
Not really. In the classes we learned not the classes were not as good as they are now, because we learned fixed figures, which could be improvised or changed from figure to figure. But we learned also the simplest things. But in the beginning, yes, I was caught by these special possibilities of tango, and for some time I had a very ambitious partner, and we were practicing all these things. But I think in general it was not more, in the milongas it was not more show elements than it's today.
Okay. Well, it must have been very interesting, apart from these discussions about tango styles, that you had a dance in which you improvised something in a social setting, like on a social dance floor. I mean, that's completely up, like I already said, that's completely opposite to what you were used to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a very interesting way to get into tango. And I always really enjoy these stories of people who are like veterans, so to say, like who started relatively early or really early, and because so many things have changed, of course, and a lot of people cannot even imagine how it used to be back then.
I was also fascinated when I went to my first milonga, which was about 1 year after starting classes. And I was fascinated about how people were intimate together, with the heads touching. We didn't do it in ballroom, and intimate in the couples, but changing couples all the time. This was completely new for me, and I was really excited for my first milonga, and I didn't sleep all night. This night I didn't sleep because it was so exciting. And I danced with several partners, whereas the classes I had before were with a fixed partner.
Okay. Yeah, and did you feel prepared by the teachers for something like this?
Yes. It was a milonga organized by my teachers, and then I went also to the other milongas.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. And how did the tango scene, if you could call it that already, how did it look like in your city? Because you're from a city which has a relatively strong presence in tango, I would say. Munich.
Yes, it's a big city, and we had already a tango scene in the 90s, but we didn't have milongas every day. I think it was 3 or 4 a week, and 3 or 4 organizers. I don't remember exactly. But then came, I think, around the year 2000, there was milonga every day. and also practicas and more and more teachers. And after the crisis in Argentina, 2001, 2002, a lot of Argentinians came, and they took over part of the tango scene. So we have really, we have really many organizers, many protagonists of the tango scene here in Munich. I hope they will survive. Oh, many of them will survive.
Yes, because it's a very complicated time, and well, maybe that makes it like even more interesting to reflect on the past, because we have learned that these things are not as self-explanatory as we would like them to be. Like there's a lot of work behind the tango scene going on, and
a lot of work and a lot of money. This is the most difficult thing here, especially in Munich, because Munich is the city with the highest prices to rent rooms, and we had already a loss of rooms of studios which organizers maintained and couldn't maintain anymore even before the Corona crisis. And now I have no idea how it's going on, because I'm sure that not every room will be saved. And my own milonga, it's in a cultural center, and I'm right tomorrow I'm going to talk to them and find out which possibilities I have after the Corona crisis to maintain my milonga. So it's really to rent rooms is difficult, and also to rent rooms only for a night or so. It's very expensive and difficult.
Yes. And is this the Giesinger Bahnhof? Yeah, I saw that earlier. Yeah.
It's not so expensive because it's a public cultural center, and it's a great possibility. I can afford it, and I can have the price relatively low, the entrance price, and I hope this will continue, because it's a new management in this cultural center. I want to meet them the first time tomorrow.
Okay. So getting back to this to the past, so to say, you're very famous for tango music, and I would like to know what was the music like back then, because there has been a lot of evolution, I suppose.
Well, I have a musical background. I played music myself in my youth. I played the flute and a little bit piano.
Okay.
We did music in the family and with friends, and I was also considering to study music, but in the end I didn't do it because I wouldn't have passed the piano exam, which is quite difficult to study music on the music university. So I was a hobby musician, but then I started dancing, and the more I danced, the less I played music myself.
Okay.
But I think it helped me to understand music, to I have basic knowledge of musical theory and these things. And tango music I found tango music very interesting in contrast to the dance music I knew before, especially in this ballroom scene. Everything is standardized, also the beats per minute. And so we had music was given, which could be played in the competitions, and it was always the same, and like music like artificial. Like there were 3-4 orchestras, and they played all the dances.
Okay.
Then I heard tango for the first time. This Sexteto Major. I was enthusiastic about this music. I bought a lot of CDs. First, I bought CDs of Piazzolla, Sexteto Major, Pugliese also, and then from this I started more and more to also appreciate the simpler music, yes, and when I went to Buenos Aires the first time, this was in the year 2000, I heard the traditional music played in the milongas there, in tandas and cortinas. I liked very much this concept of tandas, and I knew a lot of new orchestras. They weren't played before in Germany or in Munich. And then I started to educate myself to know the tango music and the different orchestras. So this was in 2000. And then in Munich, at that time, they played tango, but they played also a lot of non-tango in the milongas. And I disliked this more and more. And so in the year 2003, I decided to be a DJ myself, to try to play in some milongas, and I started with a style I had learned in Buenos Aires.
Okay.
Tandas and cortinas, and there were a lot of discussions if tandas and cortinas are a good idea. Many people were against it.
Yes.
And I think I founded the first milonga in Munich in 2005 with tandas and cortinas.
So it was controversial back then.
Yeah, it was really controversial.
Really controversial. Okay. Okay.
It felt restricted by this katana concept.
Sorry.
And also
can you repeat that?
They felt restricted by this
restricted. Okay. Yeah.
Of structuring the milonga into tandas, and they felt also restricted by not playing other music than tango music.
Yeah, it's incredible how how deep convictions can be, and now most people have the opposite conviction, and they don't want to steer away from that. Of course, there's still people who like non-traditional music, or even like totally non-tango music and dance to that. That's also present in Europe still, but there's so many people who have who are just ingrained in this Buenos Aires system. And well, you were one of the persons who brought it to Europe in a sense. So that's really interesting.
I don't think to Europe, no, but to Munich, in some sense, yes. And first, when I invited to DJ in other milongas, I asked the organizer if I could play this system. And in some milongas I could. And then I founded my own milonga because it was not so present in Munich.
Okay.
But about the non-tango music we have in Munich, we have a big sub-scene of milongas that play almost no traditional tango music. They only play maybe new orchestras or piazzolla and or non-tango music. It's almost, they have many milongas.
Still today?
Still today, yes.
Yes, yes. Well, I know from the city where I live that there is a sector of people who think the same. And I don't like it, but it's their style. Let me just check. You've explained to us like how you started dancing and how you started DJing. And you also explained us why you started DJing. I mean, you thought it, that the music could be better than it was at the moment, and then it should be better, right? That's the. I think that's what you just tried to say.
Exactly.
But my remaining question for this topic is, is there maybe like a why that you started to dance tango? For example, there's some people who experience some kind of crisis in their life, or some difficult period, at least. And they kind of like tango found them, or they found tangos. Like, was there maybe anything going on right there as well, or was it just you discovering the dance and think, oh, this is better than what I've been doing so far?
It's more the latter, what you say. It's this emotional charge of tango, to say this is, I found something for my life. I wouldn't say this. Of course, a big part of my life are then dedicated to tango, but my private life was mostly apart from tango, and still the most important people in my life are not tango people. And so it's there is emotion, of course, but not in the sense that this completely new life or new sense in my life.
No.
It was just this dance and music thing what fascinated me.
Yes, but that actually brings us to the second big topic I want to discuss. Like, what is the meaning of tango for your life? And what you just said is that, if I understand correctly, that well, I would say that in general, like, there are people for whom tango is like really big, like they need to dance what they used to before Corona, but they had to dance every weekend or around Europe and whatever. But there are also people who like fit tango into their life a bit, but there are also a lot of other things they're interested in, and a lot of people they know are not from the tango world. So how is that like in your case? Could you tell me a bit more about that?
I dedicated a lot of time to tango, even although it's not this central importance. in my life. For example, in the first years, I went out to dance 5 times a week, and it was difficult to arrange other appointments. My friends said it's impossible to invite me. So it was always a conflict. And then later, when I became an organizer and teacher, I had a lot of commitments, and which sometimes collided with other activities. So it was not easy, and there were conflicts, but I try to fulfill the commitments, of course. But I have also an important part of my life is away from tango. And I stay with this. And I don't go out anymore 5 times a week before the pandemic. And I also am not among those people who had a big crisis for the pandemic. I started to dedicate myself more to music, investigate more, do some online activities, and of course I miss dancing. But I'm convinced dancing will come back. It will not be in a very far future. So I'm looking forward to dance again.
Yes, you're optimistic, and at the same time,
it's vaccination.
Sorry.
Vaccination. I had my first.
Okay, that's great. Okay. Well, that's one big first step towards normality, right? And
yeah.
But it's good to hear that you've survived this situation, quite well. Also because of a balance in your life. I think that's very healthy.
Because I'm not living alone, and I'm not. My life is not only tango, or has not been tango only.
Yes. Well, I also learned with time that I had a bit of a problem myself, like that I was less interested in the music and dance, which was connected to depression. But from that experience, I learned that it's important to have like these different pillars in your life, like different activities. And when something is not going so well, you can temporarily replace it with something else, or and well, it's good to hear that you are also you have a very long tango career, but then there's this initial excitement that you want to dance all the time because it's new and it's something like you have never experienced before. It's super special. And then but some people, I think, they always stay in this addiction sense and mode. Yeah. But you were more I shouldn't judge, but I should just say you are more like balanced, perhaps.
Well, some way, yes. And I think I miss more than dancing. I miss to DJ and to present music. But I miss dancing a lot also.
Yes.
And no, I don't want to compare it. I miss both.
Okay. And maybe the social aspect, is that something you miss as well?
No, that's what I wanted to say. My social life is a great part of my social life is apart from tango.
Is apart? So sorry, I think I didn't understand. So it's
not in tango. It's
not in tango. Yeah.
People who are not tango people.
Yes.
And yes, I miss some tango people, but I meet them and we go for a walk or so, or talk by telephone or phone. So I have my tango contacts, and I also what was for me very important to stay with the tango community in the pandemic was this a series of events, Tango by Year. I don't know if you heard of it or if you participated in.
No, I've only heard of it. I've not participated in a lot of tango things. So.
It was fantastic because it was a very deep presentation of music and stories about music. Is always of 1 year. And this team, Doug and Michael Lavoca, they did it in a really great way. And we were, in the end, after a year, we were a community of about 200 people, always the same people. And I got a lot of new, interesting contacts by this series, mainly about with people who are in some way know a lot about music or are working with the music. This was really interesting, and I'm very happy about these new contacts. Many of them I don't know personally.
So you've had a lot of positive results because of this situation as well, I would say. Yeah, it's just a matter of how do you look at it,
But it's not if had to choose, I would of course choose a life without pandemia.
Yes, yes. But it's, you know, it's a healthy thing to, even though all of this tragedy, you know, you can still look at the positive things. And
Two other good things are that I eat a lot of garlic and
okay.
I sleep a lot. I sleep much more than before.
Okay. Is that because of you're not going to the milongas?
Yes, I think so. But going to, and I don't travel. I don't have to get up early because for my work I'm retired since some years, and so I can sleep as much as I want, and I enjoy this. Is what I really enjoy.
Okay, okay. I'm trying to remember what I wanted to ask. It had something to do with the online thing. So yeah, you participated in that series, and you got to know people. Yeah, it's well, I can't remember exactly what I wanted to ask, but you know, from here, let's move on to well, I think I've had most things like the balance and your social life, and you know, it's yeah, it's very interesting, and maybe just looking towards the future a bit. So what do you expect will happen with you personally when things start going again? Like when you, for example, you can start to organize your milonga, and are there any expectations for that?
I get back to my old life. I will organize milonga. I will DJ. I will travel and dance a lot. I'm looking forward to do all this. And I love to be at weekend events, marathons or encuentros. I love to dance in my own community. I hope that the important organizers, the really good organizers, survive. And maybe I travel a little bit less, but not. I think it will be more or less like before.
Okay, so not just your life will be more or less like before, more the same, but I mean, do you think all these encuentros and marathons will also just pop up again like they did?
Maybe not as many.
Okay.
The first, it will be in the first time. It will be difficult because to avoid contagio.
Uh, uh, contagion or something.
To get the disease.
Yeah.
Many events will either ask for vaccination document or for testing also, and there's already a debate about this, and I also have to consider myself how I'm going to do it in the milonga because it's an indoor milonga, and we have not so good air condition or ventilation.
Yeah.
So this, I think, in the beginning there will be some problems how to perform these events from the point of view of hygiene.
Yes.
But therefore I think it will be less events, and not every organizer will return to make that many marathons and encuentros. But on the long, I think in the long run, it will return like it was before.
Okay.
And before we had the flu, and I had my vaccination against flu every year, and some people were ill and they recovered, and it will be like with Corona. It will be in a year or so the same.
Yes.
This is my personal prognosis.
Okay. Well, interesting. So I would like to move on to the third topic today, which is the more specifically about you, because I'd like to talk about your unique DJ style, or at least that's what I would call it. And yeah, so of course, how did this originate? So, or maybe you should tell a bit like what's different, in my words, than about your style of DJing.
The first thing was I wanted to DJ like in Buenos Aires, and I did so. And I bought a lot of music. I was traveling a lot to Buenos Aires in these years, every year for a month, and every year I came back with 100 or more CDs. I bought everything I could buy, and then I discovered that in Buenos Aires they always play the same, even from the same orchestra, not only the same orchestras, but even from each orchestra, always the same songs. And with my new music, I discovered a lot more music. I discovered more songs of Di Sarli that are not played, or not played often. I discovered early music of Di Sarli, for example. Nobody knew Di Sarli of around 1930 in that time, 15 years ago. Nobody knew it, and it's fantastic music. I was the first to play it in Munich, I think. When the raw record Di Sarli 28 to 31 came out. Maybe you know it, this red one. Only an example. And I discovered Firpo, Lomuto, early Lomuto, Juan Mario, a lot of orchestras nobody knew, and they weren't played in any place. So I presented in my own milonga, I presented my discoverments. And sometimes people say I think it was in the beginning, it was quite extreme. I had a partner, Matthias. He had the same fascination for this old music. And in the beginning, we played mainly music from before 35. Only later, I started to be a big fan of Troilo, for example. And then I played, Troilo is my first orchestra. And then I amplified a little bit the repertoire, but we started with really weird music in the eyes of many people, and we were a small milonga, not more than 30, 40 people in the beginning, and I had a very bad fame, bad reputation, because they said Theresa's music is boring, and she's ultra conservative and doesn't play the things that dancers want. And I'm still struggling against this reputation. Okay, and you have to get used. It can be beautiful to dance to this old music, but people were not used to it. And I think then two things happened. I mixed my music better with the years. I mixed also the very well-known things and more styles, not only the old style, but a mixture of styles. And people started to appreciate some of the music that was unknown, and it was no longer unknown because I played it. And then I had a community of people who liked to dance to my music. And now I'm in a stage after 17 years of DJing, in a stage where I mix really the different styles, also music of the 50s, all the orchestras, but I do play some things that nobody else plays, like Firpo or De Caro, music from the 20s, or lesser known things from the 40s and 50s. And I'm still discovering a lot. I'm still discovering all the time new music. Lately, I discovered Armando Pontier because I had a better quality records of him, and I'm also I try to have everything what is available except some orchestras I don't like.
Okay.
And my personal what is always a controversy is some people say DJs have to play for the dancers. Yes, of course. And I play music where I know that only music where I know it's a good music for dancing. But to play for the dancers in another way can be meant like only what everybody knows. And this is too boring for me. Not to discover all the because there's an extreme richness of styles and of different music, and it's I don't want to throw away 80% of the interesting music.
Yes, and you had your own way of introducing a lot of music, like in a sense gradually to the people in your community, and that's maybe also why they got this broader taste.
Yes, but in the beginning it was extreme, and we found together the dancers and me.
But maybe in a sense, like you explained, that you gradually started mixing things better. Some, maybe then in the beginning you were just like too like trying too hard, or like being too extreme about it, maybe, or.
Yes, because I wanted to present all my discoveries from Buenos Aires. Music I bought in Buenos Aires, but nobody plays it there. But I had this music, and I listened to it, and I discovered all the time fascinating songs. This was I wanted to present them, and it could happen that I had played for an hour or so music that nobody knows. And I think now I know that after a tanda with unknown things, even if they are great, you have to play something known, because people feel more comfortable when they can dance to the music they know.
Yes. So I guess this whole concept of playing for the dancers is like as these two sides. Like you should play things they know, but sometimes apparently you can also experiment more, and then maybe they actually like the change. So it's quite a difficult balance, right?
Yes, the balance between unknown and known, and also for me, a DJ should play music he likes and not music he thinks people like. I think this is a very important concept for me. If not, then it would be like in Buenos Aires, where, with some exceptions, everybody plays the same, and some milongas even play always the same playlist. You don't see a DJ, but they have a playlist, and it's much more interesting to have DJs with different styles, different preferences, and I go to a milonga and DJ X plays. I know he's a Troilo guy, or I know he's a D'Arienzo guy, and I can decide, do I want to have a milonga which is charged with D'Arienzo and energetic music, or do I want today to go to a milonga with more romantic music? This is a very good thing. It's to have a style as a DJ and to communicate the style. And in a weekend event, it's a great thing to have every DJ plays a little bit different in style and not repetitions all the time.
Yeah. And I think you're also because I think some people, for example, they complain about encuentros that there's too much old music, so to say. But I think what you are good at is I would say not all the old music is as great. Not it's not all like on the same level. So you also need to be selective.
There's very, very boring stuff in the old music.
Yes.
And the other extreme is the modern orchestras. I didn't play almost no modern orchestras because most of them are not good enough in my opinion.
Yes.
Particularly because of the violins. I'm very sensible against bad intonation of violins, and many very popular modern orchestras have bad violins.
I agree with this completely. Yes.
Yeah. But now I discovered some very good new orchestras, and I do play them when they have good violins, and when they have good arrangements and musicality. I love to play modern orchestras also, but not because it's modern. It's as itself.
Yeah, because it's good music, and you like the danceable and yeah.
And when I discover a good modern orchestra, I promote it on my Facebook and in my milongas. Yeah, but it's the minority.
Well, I like your open mind. The contrast between what you said, like the styles in Buenos Aires, that things are just, I'm not as, well, I would call it experimental as you are, but I do really recognize that, for example, if you have a popular orchestra, well, the first thing that comes to mind is Rodriguez. You can always play the four same songs, but if you look, for example, at Flores, there are some songs with a pretty nice, they're nice to dance to. They have enough, character, but they're not heard a lot. And I just noticed people just like the change of not hearing always the same four songs. So it's yeah. And with Troilo as well, I think you asked me and someone else to translate some titles back in the day, and I think in 2013. and there were some songs that I was not very familiar with, and with Fiorentino from the best years, and that's well, actually, can I, yeah, just one thing. I recently read a part of Michael Avoca's book, the original book, Tango Stories,
First,
or I think the D'Arienzo one, and he mentioned like in 1940 you have this singer called Carlos Casares, and nobody knew about him and nobody played him until Noelia and Carlitos started to dance to Rie Pajazo, and then suddenly it became popular. So it's a proof that there's so much music, well, maybe not so much music, but there's still quite some music from the best years, from the best orchestras, that's not even known very well for random reasons.
exactly, exactly. This is one thing. Sometimes I discover songs I have in my collection, and and when I hear it in a certain mood, and oh, what song is this? And then I introduce it into my repertoire, and I still discover things, although I really have listened a lot to tango music in my life, but still, it's because it's so rich. It's always something to discover.
When I knew that I was going to interview you, I was, late at night, I started listening to some Firpo from 1934. I'm actually the person who uploaded a lot of this on YouTube back in the day. Um, and I
Ah,
just listened to one of the songs from 1934, and you know, I I was just amazed. Like at some point, I had tears in my eyes by how creative this music was, and the stories this instruments tell. And for some reason, nobody really likes this music, um, apart from you and me. So sometimes it's really a question like we have this expression in Dutch, like the unknown is unloved, and that's what happens sometimes. Not all the music that's not being played is good, of course, but it's good to have an open mind sometimes.
yes, the opposite opinion is this music is not played for some reason, but uh, the choice is so small because of some reason. But now this maybe you have to listen to a song 2 3 times to really appreciate its beauty. Sometimes it's not in the first moment, but uh, yeah, there is beauty in so many tango songs.
So I would like to ask you, this is something I ask you to prepare. Is there some particular song? We cannot play it right now due to copyright reasons and all that stuff. But is there? I will link it in the description of this video. Is there a particular song you would like to share with the audience?
Yes, it's a song I shared recently on 2 occasions. I shared it in the 1931 show of Tango by Year. It wasn't played by the show, but and then later I shared it in the group, and it got 100 likes or so. And I shared it also in a seminar I gave in with organizers of Los Angeles online. It was about the music around 1930. This song is called Llorando en el andén, crying on the platform. It's already the title is very emotional. It's an instrumental, and the orchestra is Carlos Vicente Geroni Flores. So nobody knows this song. There is only one recording, I think, available from Euro Records from BATC. Maybe it's also on a Japanese CD, but it's difficult to get, unknown. But when I posted it 3 times or so on different occasions. It always gets a lot of appreciation. I posted it, for example, the first time when for the first time I had to cancel my milonga in the Giesinger Bahnhof, which is a Bahnhof station. So I posted a song that is related to a railway station. Was Llorando en el andén. Yeah.
Does it
So
have
maybe
lyrics?
I would be happy when you play it, when you link it with this video.
Yes, I will. Yeah, I think people will like it a lot.
It has a beautiful bandoneon, a wonderful variation. And I listened to it after you asked me to recommend a song. I listened to it yesterday. This bandoneon variation is incredible. And it has also interesting harmonic modulations, unusual and interesting harmonic modulations.
Can you explain us what it is?
It's when you are in a certain key, and there are usual changes within the key from neighbor keys to neighbor keys and back, and there are also unusual changes. And there the changes that you can hear it intuitively. It's not the chords that you hear are different than those you would expect.
Okay.
Or than you are used to. And also interesting piano. So it's really, I really recommend to listen to this song several times.
Well, I think people will love to study this song a bit, because it's definitely something different than what they're used to. So that I would like to discuss the last topic of our interview, which is a very special topic. And I wonder if you if there's anything you've seen in my background that catches your attention.
I see something like it looks like a partiture cover.
Yeah, sheet music. Yeah.
Sheet music.
But you can't read the letters of it.
I cannot really identify what it is. It's too small.
Okay, it's La Victrolera.
Ah.
And I just hang this. I put this poster there just because I had this conversation with you. So I dedicated this poster to your your interest, your presence in this interview. So for that reason, before I will explain this, but we need some context first. So one of your research topics and one of your things you've talked about in public is the topic of women in tango. And I would there's even a more specific aspect of women in tango that a lot of people would probably find very surprising to hear. So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit, summarize it a bit right now.
Yes, I was, I think 3 years ago, I was invited to give a seminar about women in tango. It was a topic I had not studied before, at a festival in Germany, in Stuttgart, which was only for women. So with women taking classes and leading women, things like that. The milongas were with men and women, but I was asked to give a seminar women in tango and also to DJ. For DJing, I tried to DJ to play as many songs as possible, but without disturbing the dance flow with women, either as composers or as lyricists or as musicians. It's not much with musicians, but female singers and also the cortinas. A lot of female music in the milonga, and for the seminar, I concentrated mainly on tango lyrics and how women are addressed in tango lyrics. And so we have the mother, we have the woman as being accused to have left the men. First sang tango, Mi Noche Triste, already per canta que me amoraste en lo mejor de mi vida. Woman, you left me in the best moment of my life, which is an accusation. And so also tangos where women are really accused or they are violence against women, like in Crimen, for example, really, really horrible lyrics with horrible stories. And there's also a big field in the lyrics which addresses this gray zone of prostitution. So there was a type of prostitutes. There was, of course, in Buenos Aires, prostitutes like all over the world, but there was also a type connected to tango, women who were called milonguitas. They were something in between a prostitute and a concubine, for only one man or for several men, and they lived a life in relative luxury, and also a life that was often better than the options they had without this. And a lot of tangos are addressing this kind of woman in a certain way. They say, you are a beautiful woman, you have a life of luxury and champagne and tango, but you will see 20 years later when you are old, nobody nobody wants you, and you will die in poverty and lonesomeness. For example, the tango El Motivo. Yeah. So this is it's a topic that appears in many tangos. And I was talking in that seminar in Stuttgart about these lyrics. Later, I also researched about more about female musicians, which is a quite difficult topic because there's not much material about it. And I gave a seminar an online seminar in November with an organizer from Toronto about women in tango music, which is also really interesting.
As authors, not as subjects of a lyric.
No, as performers. As authors, okay. I had before also there are some interesting poems. For example, this beautiful tango El Adios, we know it from Donato, is written by a woman, and it's particular lyrics of a couple who they separate, but they are not, the man is not accusing the woman, he's only suffering but not making drama. So this is and there are some good songs with female composers and lyricists, but performers, except singers, there's a lot of female singers in tango. Not so much in the music we play in the milongas, but in tango canción we have really big stars, singing stars like Ada Falcón, Mercedes Simón, and so everybody in Argentina knows them. But there were very, very little, very few musicians who played tango in the traditional tango in the golden age. Even now, men are the majority in the tango musicians. In the good orchestras, very, very few women. Yeah, and so I researched about the story of Paquita Bernardo, the bandoneonist, who died with 25 only. In the year 25, she had boucliers in her band, and she was very popular. We don't have recordings from her. And then there was an orchestra leader named Ebe Bedrune from Rosario. She was in the radio and in milongas, but didn't leave us recordings. And there were only a very few musicians. For example, the harpist in Fresedo's orchestra. Every picture of Fresedo's orchestra, all men, 8 bandoneons, 10 violins, and then a female harpist.
So was that already the case in, for example, the 30s and the 40s, or is that of a later date with the harp? With this harp,
started in 35, I think. No, yeah. They had a harp for a long time, and the harpist her name was Nelida something. She stayed with him all the time.
Okay. So would you think that this lack of women as musicians is also maybe has to do with like that was very much still a male-dominated society back then?
And it's not specific for Argentina. It's in orchestras, symphony orchestras in that time were only very few women. And for example, in the Orchestra Wiener Philharmonica, and one of the most important orchestras in Europe, they had their first woman in 93. And Berliner Philharmonica, I think 10 years before. So it was in classical music as well. It was very unusual that women performed. They were teachers. They taught children to play piano and to play instruments. They played at home in small groups, but in the really big business of classical music, there were no women. And this was the same all over the world. Do
you think that's a product of sexism?
I think it's a product of society. We had also in that time we had no female university teachers. We had no female doctors, medical doctors, and in all professions, women were underrepresented because it was not normal that they worked and that they had careers, professional careers. Women were. My grandmother was still staying at home, and my mother for half of her life as well. So it was the usual thing was that the man worked and the woman was caring for the family. So this, I think, it's nothing special It's nothing special for tango, nothing special for Argentina.
No. And maybe related to that, there's a topic I wasn't very familiar with that you have also highlighted. You have already said a little bit about it, in your what you said previously here. But that what I found so striking to learn from you was how big prostitution and the gray zone around it were in the dancing ambience in Buenos Aires.
Well, prostitution was particularly big in Buenos Aires just because there were in some decades there were three times more men than women. The majority of the population were immigrants, and the immigrants, they were mostly men. They were sent by their family, or they went to gain money and hoping to come back as rich men, but they didn't take all their family. So only men came, and then there was a big demand for women, and it's a lot of brothels and prostitution was there in Buenos Aires, and many men didn't find a woman to marry. So this is this phenomenon is stronger there for sure than in other places, and especially in tango there was there are legends that tango developed in the brothels or things like that. I think it's nothing special with the brothels in tango. Tango developed in the society there and on different places, and also in the brothels. And there were women, you could buy a tanda with them, you could buy sex with them. They did both in some establishments. In some, there were also places where there was a milonga in the main hall, and there were rooms in the back where prostitution took place. You could hire in the milonga, you could hire a woman to have sex later. So there was, and also some of these places were very elegant, like Lo de Laura, or organized by women. And in some of these places, the orchestras started their career. Young musicians started their career because they were invited to play there. But I think what is really special with tango and prostitution is this gray zone where, especially in the elegant tango places, women were sold themselves, and they had rich men, which were called bacanes. Rich men paid them their life to go out, to dance, to have sex. And some of the women were exclusive girlfriends of these men, and some had just showed up in the cabarets and were invited to have a drink, and made the men drink more and dance and earn their money like this.
Yes,
and we have it's called escort services. Also, these things exist in other societies as well. But I think in tango it was especially pronounced and addressed in the tango lyrics.
Yes, because that's what I wanted to say. I didn't know very much about this topic, but over the last year I started to notice more and more that there's a lot of lyrics talking about prostitutes in a sense, or also in a bit of a patronizing way, like you were young and beautiful, and but you lost your innocence, and it's very old-fashioned lyrics. I don't always feel very comfortable listening to them. I think it's a bit strange, but I guess it's just a product of the times they were living in.
No, it's also the moral standards that were in the society. They reflect in tango. Tango lyrics are often driven by the thoughts of the lyricists, and these are moral standards of the time. And in this case of prostitution, maybe a combination of the moral standards and something exotic, like women from France, beautiful women who are described in these tango lyrics.
Yes, well, we could keep on talking about this topic forever, I think. So maybe I should. Sorry.
We've been talking already an hour or so.
Yeah, so it was not really the idea to pass 45 minutes, but I think I should invite you a second time, and then we can talk about this more. The only thing I wanted to say is because of this poster. It's there's this tango song called La Victrolera, which you of course know, and the Victroleras. Sorry. Yeah, you are the DJ. Yeah. You know it, and they were like, well, usually pretty girls who would play the. I find this a bit hard to express in English, but they would play this gramophone, at bars or cafes, and I looked it up a bit, and it seemed like, in some places they were pretty much like a selling point for the cafes, like to get in men because they were pretty and attractive. So they had like this sexual selling force, and they were just used like they were kind of DJing the music, but they were more not really a DJ in the modern sense, but more like a sex object, which is also very strange in our current time.
And they were the technical DJs, but they didn't choose the playlists.
No, yeah, that's it. Well, it's like today in Buenos Aires, right? I'm just joking, but they're still not choosing the playlist. But some of them.
Playlists were requests by the public, and who requested it, a song had to pay for it. So this was also an additional income for the places they were playing.
Business everywhere.
Men could buy a chip or something and go to the Victoria and say, please play this song for me.
Well, maybe that's a new business model for me. I just let people pay to play certain. No, I won't. I'm not going to play Piazzolla. So just the jokes aside, what's interesting about this song, so it's a song dedicated to the Victrolera, but not describing her job. But it's about a young guy who's well, there are two versions of this song. One sung by Tipica Victor, which has only the refrain, and the refrain are the words by a young man who says like, "I loved you so much, Victrolera girl, but you went, you left me for someone else," and it's the usual thing. But then what I found, I think I'll write an article about this later. But what I found very interesting is I listened to the full version by someone you mentioned, Mercedes Simone, a female singer. And it's actually what this poster shows is an old man sitting next to a young man lying in a hospital bed who's like dreaming about this woman who's actually in the poster. She's portrayed as a Victrolera in doing the changing the record. But it's actually a guy who apparently committed suicide because of this heartbreak, which obviously no one should ever do, but romanticized in this case. He's due to public moral reasons or something, they're not allowed to tell the reason for why he's so heavily injured and lying in his bed, even though he's very young. But there's this very old man, gray old man, portrayed next to the bed. And in the story of the lyrics, this old man was actually the one still working as a nurse. Well, there was no retirement back then, I think. And he overheard him in his sleep or something, telling this story that you hear in the refrain. So it's like, and in the end he dies. But it's like it's a bit of a gruesome lyric, but it's very typical of Buenos Aires of the time. So I write something about that, but it's just something I wanted to involve here in your conversation.
I have to find this version. Maybe it's in my collection. I have to look it up.
So I think we'll have to call it a day here because we went way past the time. But I really want to thank you for telling all of this and being so open and interesting, of course. And maybe I should invite you a second time at some point because we have a lot to talk about. But this is already.
We talked already.
Sorry?
We talked already, or the most important things. But
yes,
it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's not the first time.
No. And we usually talk in Spanish, so it's pretty funny that this. I think probably the first time we're talking in English. It's a bit awkward.
Exactly.
But, yeah, but it was great to talk to you, and well, I'll link your provided song in the description. And well, that's it for today, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot. And
Great afternoon.
sorry?
It was a great afternoon.
Yes, yes. It was supposed to be a short talk and then it exploded. But I guess that happens when you have an interesting person on your show. Well, thanks a lot. And well,
Good luck for your show, for the next for this series of interviews.
Yeah, well, it has been baptized in a great way now. So you know, it was a great start. And well, hopefully see you another time. Bye.
Bye bye.